is New York. And this is me, a random European Chinese guy who's roaming the streets of New York. New York is a mental place, but it's not really how I imagined the US. I think it is very hard to grasp what America is when you just see it from the outside. But it truly feels different. Even the air feels different when you actually set foot on it. New York, boys and girls, we made it. It's loud as big as smells like shit. Let's go. Some people love it, they idolize it. I mean, there is a reason why it's called the land of opportunities, and some others hate it for various different reasons. But regardless, the US still has 3,000 plus aura, and nobody can deny that. And what's the source of this aura? Well, it's what we call the American dream. The researcher Howard said that the American dream may be the United States' primary export to other nations in the modern world economy. And that is very much true, since everybody knows about it, even people who never went to America before. It's a concept that encompasses a lot of things. Hard work, getting rich, hustle for that success, locking in during that winter arc, hitting that grind set. And anyone who asks what the American dream is, they will definitely mention at least one of these principles or features at some point. And that is literally what I did. I did ask some of my friends in the UK, who I usually go on weekend sessions where we just work on our side projects. And I posed a question if they think the American dream is real. And well, the responses were kind of mixed.
This might be a hot take, but I think the American dream is only real if you're like the standard white male in America. If you're black, long history of Jim Crow laws and everything, you're not achieving that dream. From the history, it's not set up very well.
I don't think it's real. I think it just benefits the system. As a collective, it makes sense. If I was running a country, I would want my slaves to think, yes, the American dream is real, because then they can work for me. I'll keep it like that.
I think whether the American dream is achievable or not, the belief itself that through sheer hard work you can achieve something great is a very healthy mindset to have. Personally, I think in the UK, there's a tendency to maybe conform, and I think that modesty may sometimes stifle ambition. Admittedly, it is very circumstantial whether you can achieve it or not, but all in all, it's a good mindset to have.
What the fuck?
The actual achievability of the dream was kind of in question, but everybody was familiar with both the ethos and then the entire concept itself of what the American dream is. And funny enough, although these guys didn't believe in the dream, they're still showing up every single weekend with me, grinding on their side individual projects just to reach that so-called success. The mentality is still there, even though we're not even Americans. So the idea is compelling as even for outsiders. So I can just imagine how crazy can it be for actual Americans. But why? And is the American dream actually real? We will find out today by actually defining the concept. Then we have to figure out, is it actually achievable? And how do we measure that? And lastly, we will find out why the dream is so important for Americans that it can literally sway elections and bring people like Donald Trump back into the White House. In the process, we'll learn what descriptive and prescriptive meritocracy is, what does individualism actually entail, why future outlooks are very important for democracy, and how the feeling of betrayal and disappointment in the system can lead to the exploration towards new ideals, replacing what the American dream stands for. Okay, there's some progress with the counts. I'm recording this on the day of the American election. No results yet. I'm basically just tying up all my research around the American dream into a culmination of this one election result. I've been planning this video for quite a long now. I think I've been doing research in the past 1.5 months. And I think I learned a lot about the American dream. I tried to do as much research as possible to have at least a very solid basic understanding of the ethos of the American dream, understand if it's even real, what are the different concepts and theories that are very important to tie to it, how we measure the American dream, what are the kind of key statistics that we kind of need to look at, and also just people's belief in it. And most importantly, how and why is this relevant for the American elections? So just as a disclaimer, I'm no expert. I'm just very much interested in exploring the same topic because I feel like it has political implications. And also, I was in New York and I kind of felt what the American dream might have meant. This feeling is still in me that I want to interpret a bit better. That's why I spend a lot of hours sitting in university libraries once again, digging through information.
Well, I think I'm onto something.
Coming back home from work after tedious days, sitting at my laptop, doing all this research.
It's Sunday today. These are the only times when I really have time to work on the video, so I'm trying to mesh out as much as possible.
Just to provide some better insight to you guys as well. Either if you're non-American and want to understand this concept a bit better, or you're American and just want to see how outsider perspectives see the American dream itself and how it might actually affect your elections back at home. So this is no means a comprehensive study, but it's an interesting one. So most importantly, we should start getting into what is the American dream and is it even real? The American dream as a term was originally coined by a guy called James Truslow Adams. He defined it as a vision of a land where life is better, richer, and fuller. A place which is based on merit, effort, and ability, regardless of someone's class, and other type of backgrounds. And he saw the dream as not just something on a materialistic dimension, but something which is about the pursuit of personal fulfillment. Obviously, this is not the only definition. Throughout my research, there's so many academics and so many researchers have tried to coin some kind of a definition around the term. For example, Torkelson, he said that American dreams serve as an ideal of collective aspiration tied to success through hard work and merit. And this is a very culturally central ideal within the American national ethos. Another definition from Wallach and Peterson, they mentioned that the American dream is framed as both a personal aspiration and also a symbol of the nation's values, emphasizing equality of opportunity and success through effort. So we can clearly see that there's certain recurring themes throughout all these definitions, which is surrounds about individual merit, hard work, success, both financially and different kind of values-wise, such as freedom, the equality in terms of opportunity of reaching this success, and most importantly, getting to things through your own personal abilities and merit. A national ethos and an ideology that encompasses a collection of values which are freedom, democracy, and also the rule of law, which creates a system where every single individual who thinks of themselves as individuals are able to thrive with their freedom and liberty. And I definitely felt that this ideology and this way of thinking is so ingrained in people and also just in the vibes, the fabric of how America functions, even just in New York. Like on the first night when I was standing outside a corner store waiting for my mates.
I think it's like high as fuck. There's this random dude on the corner just rapping
into the void. Nobody was really paying attention to him. I found it so intriguing. How the fuck can you just have so much balls to just scream out loud into the public with like no air of like what others would think of you? So I did a little spiel and tried to record myself and talk about him. He started walking towards me and I was like, fuck it out. Is he gonna like fuck me up or something? But you know what? That never happened because this guy came up to me and just said that, oh, you're doing some cool shit. I see your camera, bro. You know, you gotta keep on doing what you do. I believe in you. You can make it, bro. And just gave me a fist bump.
feel me? Top through us.
Yes, sir, man.
All right. Let's go.
Cheers, bro. And I was quite amazed and very pleased by the experience as well. It's just that optimism in me, which is not really regular in the UK or in even Europe. People, they just don't believe in you whatsoever. I was like, wow, dude, okay, fair enough, man. Thank you. And that interaction already set a tone for me of what that feeling of the American dream or just that belief in somebody's own abilities was. And there's so many other things across the city that just embodies this super individualistic thinking. I see random dudes in like a cowboy hat sitting on the corner of the street just like staring. There's this like motorcycle group bumping Kendrick Lamar, Not Like Us on the street. Making a whole ass party. I fucking loved it. It was fire. We went to Flushing with a friend that I made from like a previous party in New York, and because he plays baseball, he went to do some swings and just like do his thing. And the coach who was on the pitch, that was the most American person I could ever like just seen in my life. And that's the thing, there's like this some kind of innate American confidence and a tone of voice that just comes through. I don't even know how to imitate it. But let me just put the clip somewhere here.
Got it! I got it! Go, go, go! Yeah. Excellent. That's it. You had a good outing.
True American culture experience, huh?
Everywhere you go, anyone you hear in a conversation, they just all sound like they're like the protagonist of the movie. And sometimes they say like the most like useless, most boring, you know, like thing, but they just say it in such a way that makes them like, this guy is like definitely an A-type character.
Flushing is honestly like little China. It's not even Chinatown. It doesn't give that vibe. It just literally feels like China. I guess that's what America has as an appeal. It just gives like space for minorities to like find their own communities and fill up neighborhoods with that, but still being able to interact with others.
I also passed by Ryan Serhan's like big office. He's also like a way of encapsulating this American dream type of feeling that like, you know, if you work hard enough, put in all the hours, you definitely can make it. And even the thing that I hate the most, tipping culture is also such a good way of showing what the American dream is. People have to hustle to get their money's worth because your employer will definitely not gonna give it to you, which I don't necessarily like because nowadays tipping is not really about the service anymore. I think it's more like necessity. Anyways, this ethos, I think it's carried in that American flag. flag, because the flag is just everywhere. I think that kind of just reminds everyone this, like, we're American. These are the things that we stand for. Freedom, liberty, democracy, rule of law, all come together. And the American dream being embedded in the national ethos is also very much reflected even how the nation was founded at its inception. I went to the Boston Tea Party memorial show type of thing. The shit was dog shit. Yeah, the production was like fine and the visuals and whatever was cool, but it's more like show than any substance. I didn't really learn much.
2, 3.
How
So yeah, if you come to Boston, don't spend money on this. It was like $40. Absolutely not fucking worth it. But it once again proved to me this type of American feeling that we band together as single individuals fighting for our own individual liberties, and we come together and we make states to govern ourselves by the rules of democracy and liberalism, which back in that time was super novel. It's just so interesting how these things that could be very universal values as well, how much American connotation they get, especially through the ideology of the American dream. And the point that James Trudeau Adams said about class and any kind of like other personal background not mattering in America kind of feels true, although it is not. We'll get to that why in a second. Because America is such a big immigrant hub and it's like a gigantic melting pot. It feels like anyone could come here to this land of opportunities and just do anything and strive for success. You know, already there's like huge Latino, Chinese populations that are making fucking fantastic cuisine. First video tacos experience. Magbanga. Ooh. Yeah, guys, I just single-handedly ate $90 worth of food. But holy shit, it was one of the best culinary experiences I ever had in my life. This place called Win-Win. Fucking golden, man. Drinks. I got this yuzu flavored hard seltzer, popcorn chicken. Fucking the fucking dessert. Everybody who comes here, you gotta try the deep fried taiyan, because that shit, so good. Service, amazing. The bartender was super nice, giving me all these recommendations around the area.
By the way, sorry, can I ask, like, do you know good places to like check out in the area?
And I guess she just kept me company, you know. It wasn't like a boring, you know, I'm sitting there eating alone type of vibe.
Polish? In America? Okay, that's interesting.
Eric, sir, the founder, shout out to you, man. Like, this place is fucking incredible. Also, I went to get a haircut in 12 Pound Barbers in Chinatown. They've been popping off on TikTok and also like Instagram. They're becoming like really big. And it's like this barber collective who have their own barber shop and all Asian guys doing great things for themselves. Fair enough. Blessing people with great haircut. I was very pleased with my haircut as well. They're damn expensive, but I guess that's just a premium that you're paying just to experience the culture, I guess. These are just the type of success stories that come out from America in terms of minorities making it. Another thing which was especially interesting for me, that there was a so-called Hungarian bakery where they were selling different like cakes, breads, and whatever that I would find in Hungary, but they were so like weird. Everything seemed and felt like what it is, but it wasn't.
Ez amúgy még nem lenne rossz, csak ami 5-ször annyi cukor van benne, mint a átlag rétes. Ennek köze nincs ahhoz, ami otthon van. Ilyen nem létezik Magyarországon.
A legnagyobb baj, hogy a magyar pészésabban minden van, csak magyar ember nincs. Én érzem magam külföldinek egy magyar boltban.
Ez a legkorrektebb szerintem.
Az effort az ott van. Kivéve a dekorba, mert aznak semmi köze Magyarországon.
What America does, as I mentioned already, it's a melting pot. Here, everybody is American first. That, given like Hungarian bread, became more of an American thing. And that whole store reflected nothing about Hungary. The shop owner doesn't even speak Hungarian. So you can see that the culture and some remnants of it is being kept, but everybody is American first, and then their secondary identity is second. This is what the American dream is, that anyone comes here, they will assimilate, be part of this system where everybody is welcomed, or at least the illusion is that everybody is welcomed. You can put your foot down and create success for yourself. It's a little bit too beautiful to be real, but as I said, we'll get to it. Just be patient. From all these examples, we can clearly see that these different values attached to the American dream are definitely carried in people and is manifested in so many facets of life. However, one problem is that with modern interpretations, American dream is more and more about the materialistic side of things. And even these examples that I've shown, although they carry the non-materialistic values with them, but the most important, I think, for everyone is about that materialistic success. Or at least that's the biggest connotation for the American dream. At its core, it is about financial success. It is about money and being in control of your life. So in this case, already the individualistic thinking is placing every single individual in the sphere of a marketplace where your character is basically under the force of different kind of like market trends and market forces. where you're looking for opportunities, competing with others. And this not only leads to a lot of consumerism, which is super, super strong in America, and very, very distinct. Americans really love to consume a lot in different shapes and big volumes. Times Square is literally just the symbol of what consumerism just means. Huge, shiny, fucking big ass billboards of like different kind of ads. Everything is just like so many impulses, you know, a lot of things just like showing, oh, buy this, buy that, buy this, buy that. There's so many places you can spend your money. I bought a fucking dollar pizza for like $3.
Fucking scam.
And this is not just Times Square. Any other place you go, you know, if you go into a restaurant, the food portions are crazy massive.
I'm gonna get diabetes like twice.
Which I kind of find pretty good as well because, well, at least I'm paying my full money's worth. But one breakfast can be like above a 1K like calorie. That's just crazy to me. If you go to a 7-Eleven, you can buy these Slurpees. My friend got addicted to these Slurpees because they're super cheap.
$1.
And you can buy like the big ass 1 liter chug. And actually it's probably the most unhealthy thing on earth because it's so cheap, everyone just would buy it because why not? That's how they get you.
Mr. Beast, please collab.
So many places that seems like historical monuments are turned into some kind of a consumerist hub.
Freedom Zone.
If you just go to the Grand Central Terminal or this public library in Boston, they're just turning into like Apple stores, or at least there's an Apple store inside. Most appalling was the Boston one.
Jenny, why the fuck would you put an Apple store in a library?
Because this is a public monument, which is supposed to like let us think back to a time when knowledge was flourishing or whatnot. And this is randomly like, fucking no, fuck you, there's like an Apple store there. Apple Vision Pro, get it. And it was just like, damn. That was a bit dystopian for me, not gonna lie. And there's so many other places, you know, you go to a fast food restaurant, portions are huge. The sauce taste-wise, amazing. Unhealthy as fuck. You just want to eat more and more and more. I went to an arcade, my friend for some reason just like spent, I don't know, like $50 for like all these different kind of coins.
I just randomly picked that out, what the fuck? I never won something like that. Anyát. Yes!
Yeah, boy.
Yes!
So we got so many like toys, but I don't know, it's just the way how the environment kind of like tempts you to just spend more is insane. And even myself, I am guilty.
We made it to Target, boys and girls. The sweet American dream.
I was on a solo adventure around Soho, and you know what Soho is, you know, it's a fashion hub, and I really wanted to buy up different kind of clothes, and well, I kind of spent a lot of money. Went to Subi, I got an amazing pair of jeans.
Service, immaculate, 10 out of 10. If you guys coming to New York to the Subi store, go check Bondi out. He's super helpful, super cool guy. He gave me recommendations what to see in Brooklyn. I got this on discount as well. One of the best shopping experiences I ever had in my life.
And also, you know, just different kind of shops, like costs, different kind of vintage shops. So they really got a hold of me as well, man. You just can't escape it. But the dream also constantly reinforces individualistic narratives and makes failure into a moral issue, where blame always falls onto the person who is in failure, and we're starting to obscure any type of like structural, systematic problems that are embedded within society. The idea of meritocracy, the fact that you can progress through life based on your own merit and own abilities, is a very noble idea and a very, very important one for self-belief and personal growth. It cannot be stripped out of context, because without that context, it just becomes an unrealistic and very much harmful idea that marginalize and blame people for their own failure who are already at a very desperate position. And yeah, you might say that, well, there are just some lazy ass people, and some people just do deserve to fail, and that's very fair, and nothing can be just handed to you. However, when macro environments and just the economy in general is not doing great, and when the promises of the American dream are not coming to fruition, they will get replaced with a more resigned outlook, where people will become more hopeless and desperate without being able to strive upward. And these can lead to huge seismic shifts in the political and social structures of both America and also in general the world, that can lead to the rise of new ideologies that can not only result in the re-election of Trump, but also very, very concerning future outcomes that are far bigger than what Trump can do to America right now. But before we get to what these ideologies are and what type of outcomes they can bring, we should talk about something else first. So you can clearly see that the American dream is very much real. You can feel it as you roam around the city of New York. Besides like the smell of like homeless people, weed, and like rats. The relentless optimism, the lot of opportunities, and just the individualistic thinking is literally ingrained in the people's psyche. Everybody subscribes to it. This is what makes the fabric of America. But now the question comes, do people actually live out what the American dream promises? Or is it much more just an idealistic thinking that doesn't really have any merit to it? To get to the bottom of that, first of all, we really need to dig in numbers. And this leads to the next question, which is, how do we measure the American dream? This study from Willock and Peterson outlines 3 indicators that can help us better understand the attainability of the American dream. These indicators are the rate of home ownership, social mobility, and the degree of income inequality. Owning your own home has always been a great symbol of independence and the freedom that comes with the American dream. It shows financial success and also full control over one's life. Another core principle is social mobility, the idea that each generation will live much better than their parents. And this is especially important in immigrant communities, and the relevance of the income inequality is also understandable. As we have defined the American dream, it is also about the possibility of everyone having the same opportunities reaching success. So that's why measuring it can also tell us a bit more about structural issues. So based on these 3 indicators and how they change over time, we can basically measure both the actual attainability of the American dream and also people's beliefs in the attainability of the American dream. So now we know how we measure things. Now I want to pair this with more of the theory and the concepts, both observing the qualitative and the quantitative to get to the bottom of the question. Was it ever possible to reach the American dream? And if yes, is it getting harder and harder? Okay, we're taking a quick break here. I spoke a bit too much. If you guys like what you see or hear, or if you don't like what you hear, please comment down below, share your thoughts, share your perspectives. I'd be very happy to see, because I'm not American, especially if there's an American audience out there. I'd be very interested to see what's your perspectives, and please share, I guess, in a more civilized, debateful manner, instead of just spewing hate, which I'm not really a fan of. But once again, this is the internet. I've been loving reading these comments, and many people have been very encouraging, so thank you very much. I've been really enjoying doing these type of like research videos because it kind of feels like I'm back in uni writing essays, but now in a much more fun, independent manner. I guess it's not as rigorous and not as comprehensive as if it would be an academic study, but then again, I'm just having fun with it and trying to better understand the world and my own experiences whenever I travel or just do things in life, to have a more deeper meaning and see what's the structural things around my own life and how that, you know, shapes my life experience and how that could shape your experience. And please do not forget, if you like these type of videos, please subscribe. And my next video is going to be about my China trip. So if you guys are interested in China, social structures in China, and just like youth culture in China, I think you should definitely subscribe. But thank you very much for watching until now. Please do not leave. We're just getting into the thick of it. So let's get back whatever we were talking about. Let's get to the bottom of the question. So to see if the American dream is attainable, we need to get back to the discussion about meritocracy. I think I want to give you a more accurate description and definition of it, which Hoyt does in his paper, where he said, quote, "Meritocracy is an ideology that maintains that outcomes in a society, from jobs to wealth, are distributed based on one's individual merit, including effort, work ethic, experience, and abilities. And this is a fundamental element of the American dominant stratification ideology. Simply put, the meritocratic principle of the American dream simply focuses on the equality of opportunity, and it supposes that in American society, everyone can pursue all of these different kind of things, and based upon who's using their own personal abilities and merit to reach success is basically all from an equal footing. That's why it's fair competition between all the different kind of parties. So I think meritocracy makes sense, right? This leads to 2 other big concepts, which are probably the biggest, most important ones for this video, which is descriptive and prescriptive meritocracy. We'll put the prescriptive aside first, and let's talk about descriptive. Descriptive meritocracy refers to people's beliefs that success and positive outcomes actually accrue to those who are worthy. Basically meaning that people believe in the idea that if you work hard, you will actually reach success. And this is probably the most likely way how majority of people, both Americans and non-Americans, would understand the American dream and what it means. Across any kind of American media channel, there's a strong kind of like narrative and sentiment around that, oh, if you put your mind to something, you'll reach success. If you just watch it like these hustle bros, this is the mentality that they really embody. Obviously, this is usually the most extreme versions of like what the American dream is. And by the end of the day, the crux of the idea is still, if you work hard for something and you put your mind to it, you can reach anything in life. So this is descriptive meritocracy. It is about the actual possibility of reaching success if you work hard. Keep that in mind. Meritocracy reinforces the values of hard work, and as a main basis for the American dream, it kind of builds out this kind of cultural foundation, which both motivates people, but also legitimizes a socioeconomic system. And so with the belief in the dream and the belief within this cultural foundation that meritocracy sets, you're basically able to manage societal expectations even during economic downturns. However, the negative side of having meritocracy is that it masks societal inequalities and structural issues that are supposed to be shown and should be resolved in order to avoid social tensions. However, the dream basically fuels more of an individualistic perspective on life and just like society in general. And with a more individualistic ideal of achievements and also failures, you create a society where it is deep-rooted to frown upon low-status groups. And instead of trying to uplift them, you rather shift the blame towards them in terms of the results that they have in their lives are basically just the results of their own personal failures. And I clearly saw this reflected in New York City, how the situation with homelessness and homeless people are. They reached a position in life where they're basically so hooked on drugs and just like sedatives, and I don't even know what type of like substances that makes them like literal zombies on the streets. It's so dystopian to me. And also just seeing how police treats homeless people clearly can tell that you rather want to use force to displace these people rather than trying to actually help them. So once again, it's more about you already see them through a lens of these people deserve where they are and they're just more like a public nuisance than anything else. And once again, I do agree to some point that these people obviously made certain life decisions that definitely wasn't a great choice, and that's how they ended up here. But there's so many structural problems that people get lower and lower in terms of like life quality, and they reach these type of like super dystopian points, which I think the state has certain responsibility over. But to be fair, looking at the New York state infrastructure as well.
Bosses here, you have to like push through the door with your own bare hands. It's not automatic. What is this fucking Stone Age vehicles?
Really low functioning subways.
Ratatouille! I can actually attest New York does smell like piss, weed, and everything else, to be honest. It's so thick, you can literally bite into the fucking air.
They're not really well connecting all the different kind of parts of New York.
There's a whole train outage in fucking Manhattan. No fucking trains. It was supposed to be a 15-minute fucking ride back home. Instead, because the train system is so not well fucking connected, now I had to like go back deep into fucking Brooklyn. And now I'm like, I have to wait for this other train, which may or may not come, which is an extra 30 fucking minutes on top of the 20 that I already taken. What is this fucking shit, man? Ridiculous.
Or just like the shortage of like public bins, and the fact that McKinsey, the big consultancy firm, got paid $4 million just to tell the New York state that you need to have bins, which is a very obvious fact if you just like walk around the streets and see all the different trash. I kind of get why these homeless people are where they are nowadays. There's already a vast range of studies that are proving that individuals and their lives are mostly shaped by history and also social influences. For example, in Mortimer's study, there's a concept he coined as life course theory, which basically just means that people's attitudes towards future basically reflects their own personal agency and also social forces. But I know mere theories and shit don't really matter to you, so I think it's also important to jump into some of the stats to also prove the deeper level issues within American society that the American dream covers up. So let's look at the indicators that we talked about in terms of income inequality, social mobility, and home ownership. Based on statistics from the US Census Bureau, we can see that home ownership rates has been on a decline since 2008. This is across all the different kind of age groups. It has been on a pickup since 2016, but due to COVID and interest rate issues, there has been a dip again. The problem here is just seeing the different age distribution of things. You can clearly see that boomers have a higher likeliness of owning their homes compared to both middle-aged and also under 35 people. And obviously we might say that these people haven't lived enough to accumulate enough wealth to buy their own homes. But if we look at the wage growth statistics, buying a home back then was much more likely based on average wages compared to the current levels of wages in proportion to the cost of living and also inflation. For example, statistics from the World Economic Forum, the average hourly wage in 1964, when converted to 2018 dollars, was $20.27. Compare this to 2022.65 in 2018. That represents a mere 11.7% increase over a span of 54 years, which is not particularly great. Outlooks on actually buying a home for the future is getting slimmer and slimmer. Slow wage growth also relates to an erosion of in general social mobility in America. If you just look at this chart, this suggests that people born into upper class families are less likely to out-earn their parents regardless of generation, which I think makes sense because obviously the threshold is higher. But the key takeaway here is that the starting point of this downward trend has shifted. Fewer people in the lower and middle classes are climbing climbing the economic ladder. And if we just look at this table here, declines can be seen across the board, but those growing up in the middle class have taken the largest hit. Within this bracket, individuals born in 1980 have only a 45% chance of out-earning their parents at age 30, compared to 93% for those born in 1940. We can further see this hit on the middle classes through this next table. This is a table on income distribution. The middle class takes the largest hit here, with its share of US aggregate income falling by 19 percentage points. Over the same time frame, the upper class was able to increase its share of total income by 20 percentage points. So the data suggests that some middle class Americans are still managing to pull themselves up into the next income bracket, but it's just not an effect that was as broad-based as it's been in the past. There's several kind of like reasoning behind why these trends are happening. Could be because of the decline of union membership, and also due to technological change, there's just like a downward pressure in terms of wages onto people who are more low educated. The Gini coefficient for America, which is basically a measure for like income inequality, is 0.434, which is the highest out of any G7 country. So we can see that the middle class is so strongly hit, and I wonder why. Well, the reason is because of the 2008, the financial meltdown. Various changes in credit laws and lending practices have been put in place, which created a climate where middle-class Americans would be able to fund a lifestyle that is focused around consumption. However, in a no-growth or even declining real earning power environment, where there's a lot of outsourcing, job instability, and layoffs. So a lot of people who are playing by the books are engaged in an illusion of middle-class prosperity, while in reality, most middle-class people are just getting by. To supplement these statistics, Wyatt and Nicole also done a study around social mobility. First of all, only 6% of children born in the lowest income levels actually rise to the top, showing that there's little upward mobility, especially among lower income and also minority groups. And the possible reason why there's a huge discrepancy of why before in like the 60s, 70s, people felt so much possibility for upward mobility, and like that probably is because, well, in the 1970s, there was a huge shift in terms of economic models when America shifted towards more of a neoliberal economic system. And this is when structural mobility declined. If you want to know more about what neoliberalism is, watch my last video about why the right hate immigrants. But the main thing you need to know that during this economic model shift, the US slowly shifted away from manufacturing to service sectors. These trends led to lower wages and also limited opportunities for low-skilled workers. So you can see that the American dream and the different kind of meritocratic and individualistic principles that connect to it hides away how there's a growing gap between the rich and the poor, and also how the possibilities for the poor to becoming rich is becoming slimmer and slimmer. But the American dream not only has these different kind of class differences based on just the amount of wealth that people have, but also in terms of the other type of capital, such as social, cultural capital that people own. These terms were coined by a French sociologist called Bourdieu, and he basically defined other capitals, the social and cultural ones, that somebody gets while growing up. These are basically the social connections that one has into, for example, into the elite or the elite spheres, and also the cultural factors of things, of how do you convey yourself, how do you communicate, how do you make yourself likable. These are all very intricate social, cultural things that are like very, very nuanced in terms of how a given person carries these things out. And if you're coming from like a more higher class, you probably will already get all these trainings, or also more naturally gets embedded into you these practices, either through your parents or just your social environment. And these social and cultural capital are very, very important to like fit into circles where the most money or like most power is accumulated. When I was in America, you can clearly see that there's a huge financial center in New York, Wall Street. Like the biggest money hub is around this area. All the different kind of bankers, great decision makers, market makers, people who move around like billions of dollars just based on simple trust and relationships with other people. That's just crazy. Or if you go to DC, the White House,
it's much smaller than I thought.
The Capitol, all the politicians are around that single area, mingling among each other, and all the businesses and private interests around them. And when you're able to speak their language, express yourself in the same way as they do, and also just relate to the same cultural things, that's how you build personal relationships, which leads you to better opportunities, and also those insider information that will help you to become more successful and get ahead. And it's less likely that lower income people will have these type of like same amount of connections, or also just cultural relatabilities that will allow them to be in these spheres. So just getting back to the rags to riches stories, the function of these stories is to create a sense of like us, to create like a civic culture where people believe that you as single individuals within this collective, if you do your part, you can get to where you want to be. besides masking away the income inequalities that we talked about, also masks away racial and gender divisions within society. Because sadly, as we can see from different studies like Madriaga, Torkelson, Sendria, and like many others, there is an association of Americanness with being white due to slavery and history of segregation. But since then, this concept has definitely changed, and with societal changes among acceptability and openness towards minorities, or at least a slowly growing trend of like being open towards minorities, this has definitely changed. And due to this, there is differing views on what the American dream is based on what type of racial grouping are you part of. This is, for example, demonstrating Sendria's research, where Black African Americans were more likely to say and think about the American dream as a way of being more resilient and keeping themselves resilient in times of hardship, and hoping for a better future where racial and systematic barriers and structural issues will be broken down and racial issues will slowly diminish in the future. However, within white groups, people who are more open towards minorities had more of a resilient mindset. However, the white working class, who got massively hit by the 2008 financial crisis, had a higher likeliness of blaming different kind of racial minorities for their own economic struggles. The way how they kind of see it is that the dream was stolen by different kind of marginalized groups. Let's say, for example, immigrants, who are always in their mind somewhat of like a very racialized idea of who immigrants are. And even if the blame doesn't shift towards like racial minorities, there's always definitely a blame towards the status quo and establishment. And there's generally more of a resigned outlook towards the future and a feeling of betrayal, a betrayal from the state or from the elite who took away their dream and the possibility of reaching that dream. These are very interesting implications. I'll get to that, but let's just talk about gender real quick. For many women, the American dream kind of means economic independence and also self-fulfillment, but these clash a lot with societal expectations around caregiving, which limits their full potential. And this just, again, another example of how certain social backgrounds and their implications onto the likeliness of the attainability of the American dream really varies, that the general principles of like meritocracy and individualism don't really necessarily show. And this also just shows that descriptive meritocracy is more of an illusion. What's interesting, if you look at this Pew Research Center study that tries to evaluate people's opinions if they still believe that the American dream is attainable, you can clearly see that based on different kind of categories of like racial background, age, college education, or just even income level, across many of these categories, around 50% will say that they still think the American dream is possible to achieve. And even if that's not what they say, they will at least say that it was once possible to do, which shows that people did believe or still believe that descriptive meritocracy and just the American dream itself can actually happen. So this leads to the most interesting question, that out of all these respondents, how is that 1 in 2 people will say that the dream is still attainable, while America is drifting further and further away from the actual attainability of the American dream? Mortimer, in his study, who I already mentioned before, showed that positive future orientations among Midwest families have persisted among generations, despite different kind of economic disruptions like the Great Recession and rising job precarity. This just shows that throughout history, the American dream has constantly kind of adapted itself to its own historical context. And due to this adaptability, the dream's power and endurance as the national myth kind of gets reinforced time and time again. That's why the Americans Optimistic Survey still shows that 71% of Americans believe that personal motivation is still more important for social mobility than the state of the economy or socioeconomic circumstances as a child. And this adaptability also is reflected in how marginalized groups, for example racial groups, will adapt the American dream into their own way of understanding it, creating an ideal of resilience and how to be still hopeful in times of hardship. And this endurance of the American dream across history is due to what I've already mentioned, which is the opposite of descriptive meritocracy, which is prescriptive version of meritocracy. This is a belief in more of like a justice principle. It's much more abstract. It's not like about the actuality of success. This is a principle that maintains the idea that outcomes should be allocated based on the merit. In this sense, it's much more of a moral principle for people that it's only fair if people get what they get due to their own personal merits. And I think the reason why this interpretation of the American dream is much more fruitful is because it opens up the field not only for materialistic but also non-materialistic ideals of the American dream as well. Such non-materialistic ideals could be, for example, community. When I was in Maryland, around DC, I was visiting a friend and went to
their like sorority house. You can clearly tell that they're uni students living in this place. I'm not saying it's messy, but it just brings me back to my old golden days when I was living in the same conditions. That sorority vibe that builds basically cult-like community, but it gives community to people and a place where they feel heard and you can bond with other people through common experiences. That's something that I'd say was really, really beautiful. Sporting and fandom around sporting is also another thing due to the fact that it forms around like an importance around community. However, even in that aspect, obviously sporting is a big thing in Europe as well, but it's just very, very characteristically different because individualistic tendencies are also very much highlighted. You want to hear hero stories. People highlight the stars whose like journey and characteristics you want to see. I came to the home turf of the Boston Celtics. Fuck you guys for winning the championship, but I do give it to you guys. Jaylen Brown played amazing. He is my MVP too. And I love the fact that a lot of Americans are just very open-minded, positive, and just very uplifting. Even at the airport, just now 5 minutes ago, the border patrol guy, who's an Asian guy, complimented my fit. Just to quote him, he said, "Your drip is immaculate." I was like, I really felt seen, man. Goddamn, thank you, brother. There's no other country where like a border patrol officer would just tell you like, yeah, man, you look fucking great. And just these small little things, what in my mind at least encaptured what the American dream is, this positivity, this optimistic way of thinking and looking at life. This can allow people to see fulfillment beyond just material wealth and financial success. And if you think about the American dream as something that has the underlying principle of prescriptive meritocracy, then we can understand that the persistent American dream is not making the dream itself a kind of a static cultural value, but instead it's very much a malleable and adaptable concept, basically being able to change throughout time with different kind of real world economic events and other societal changes. And with this way of looking at the American dream, people can separate the ideals of the dream as something very important that should strengthen and reinforce their future outlooks and giving them hope and resilience while stripping it away from the realities of how the economy looks like. And we could argue that this is basically just selling yourself an illusion, basically brainwashing yourself into something that is unreal. However, I'd rather think in a different way. What keeps Americans so amazing and how their society has been able to prop it forward for so many, like at least decades, is due to this like relentless optimism and drive for a given idea. And this mentality is clearly being shown through this connection to the ideals of the American dream. And I think if we abandon this conception of the American dream, this would leave many Americans, and to be honest, a lot of people outside of America as well, quite unanchored. Because institutions of religion, family, community have slowly diminished, or at least their importance have definitely got sidelined throughout these decades, which hinders our ability to generate and sustain long-term social commitment and engagement. And if we even abandon these more individualistic ideals, that's when we get to a state of desperation and hopelessness that I think could be described what I've already mentioned about the white working class's opinion on the American dream and their feeling of betrayal, their feeling of their dreams being stolen. Because when these people feel that the system has failed them, the dream can never come true because of external reasons, that's when instead of being a source of resilience, the American dream basically becomes more of a source of resentment. And when this resentment grows and you start abandoning the possibility of these things and the importance of these ideals, that's when you start shopping for new things. And this opens up the perfect timing for certain individuals or certain groups or just like new political ideals to swoop in and take huge ground over people's minds and hearts. And nowadays we can clearly see this trend with populist ideologies. Because when people start losing hope due to external factors like economic circumstances, the unifying myth dies that has been guiding people's actions and also collective behavior. And when people start turning towards, let's say, populist ideologies, they can be easily mobilized for very, very dangerous actions that can endanger the state of our democracies and everything that we hold kind of sacred in our Western institutions and what we think how our societies and our politics should be run. I'm not necessarily seeing how populist rhetoric can actually help alleviating the problems of those groups who feel lost, because I rather feel that these people are just connecting to these ideologies based on resentment and hate rather than actual wants and wishes, and they then put people in power which not necessarily do such things.
Breaking news, this is Dill from New York substation. The news has just come in that Donald Trump has won the general election. I don't know what else to say, but that's the news. It was a pretty landslide, to be honest, but I just wanted to deliver that to Lynn, my colleague based in London. signing out.
This really just reaches to one of my first questions at the start, how the American dream kind of affected the current election results with Trump being elected. And I think the biggest reason is because there are more and more social groups that felt that they got betrayed by the system, which proposed all these ideals of reaching the American dream, while with current economic situations post-COVID and also just like the long and lasting era of post-2008, many people wanted to find answers towards their hardships. And when you don't see anything wrong with yourself, that's when you first of all lose interest in it, start looking for something else, and then you start blaming either outsiders, marginalized groups, immigrants for them stealing your dreams away, or the elites and the establishment who made the promise of giving the American people the abilities to reach their own personal American dreams, but instead just gave them more hardship and more lies. And with just like globalization, white working class people start to lose their social positions. And that's when a strongman and a showman like Trump, who shows up and tells you that we can make America great again together and bring back the American dream for you, that's when you can start mobilizing a lot of people into this belief. What we see as trends is that the whole country of America, and even global trends, there's definitely a tendency towards more right-wing politics, or a preference towards right-wing politics. And we need to start questioning why is that. Trump is definitely not an aberration. We've seen that in 2016 and it just repeated itself, which just shows that what the phenomenon Trump is much more of a normality and a norm now rather than some kind of an outlier. We have to start asking questions that why would even anyone think of a Trump system being much better than what the Democrats could offer? And this is not something that we can blame on right-wing politicians or Trump himself, but of how the Democrats haven't been able to see social trends happening in America and capturing those type of people who felt truly neglected and also in being in a precarious situation. And even when we look at why pessimism has formed towards the dream, we have to think that why there's newer and newer alignment within society towards the right. We can see that younger males and also Latinos are getting towards right-wing politics more closely. Just also again shows that there are more and more social groups like these that are having more pessimism towards the dream due to economic decline and also other kind of like social and cultural transformations that are related to it. So overall, what I want to say is that the ideals of the American dream shall be kept. The ideas around freedom, the ideas around the rule of law, the ideas around having prescriptive meritocracy, the ideas around finding guidance for your individual life, the idea of being always optimistic and relentless in terms of searching for opportunities and bettering your personal life is all great ideals that all people, not just Americans, should follow, or at least should keep in mind to keep themselves resilient and hopeful for the future. Having hope in a system, or just the personal motivation to change that system, rather than giving up on these ideals and looking for something else that promises the bring back of what the American dream is, while in actuality it's pretty much all the opposite of what the American dream should be. And while, of course, we could also say that maybe this tendency towards populistic politics and populistic ideologies is really part of a new shift of how the American dream adapts to a new era, I still don't want to believe that the American dream is something that will be rooted in resentment and hatred, instead of showcasing rather what it kind of always stands for, which is freedom, that positive mindset, having control over your own life, and an optimistic outlook for the future. I do agree with my friend Drew, who said that the ideals and the mentality that the American dream sets, the mindset that it entails, can be a very, very healthy one. I come from a very pessimistic place of Hungary, where our political systems are being fucked, our economies are being crumbled, and socially we're just lethargic. And it's at these places where retain hope and resilience are one of the most important traits to fight for things that you feel like you have rights to, and probably one of the first steps towards fixing political, economic, and social problems that are very much needed, and something that we can learn from the Americans. And instead of just constantly complaining about things that bother us, we actually do something about it. An ethos that not only could help our individual lives, but also our collective political, social lives as well, on a grander scheme of things. Because if we have no hope, no resilience, and no sense of any kind of future outlook, that's how you just let the whole system erode and decay by itself, which leads to dissatisfaction and discharge towards the system you live in. And if you come to a tipping point of that, you'll reach this state of hopelessness and desperation when masses turn to new ways of thinking, such as populism, that could endanger the main fabric of our democratic systems and our political and human rights. And this is a scary trend not only in America, but across the world. Just keeping in mind the ethos of the American dream, you will learn much about yourself as well. America really taught me to be more aware of my own luck and different kind of things that have been handed to me. Even things that I usually complain about, like my job. Understanding the value of these things and how these are bringing me forward in life to newer and newer chapters where I can better myself, and elevating people around you, your communities, which eventually can also lead to future collective actions and living a life that is meaningful and purposeful for yourself. So after all, certain principles and values that you can extract from the American dream can be applicable worldwide. That's why everyone should learn at least this from the Americans. And I really hope it will never go extinct in this ever-changing, weird landscape of American politics.
Thank you for coming along. I hope you guys enjoy this arc of the US trip and some of my insights on the world and life, ways of like connecting the dots between social structures and your own life. So I really hope at least you learned something new or just seen something cool and I didn't waste your time. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.